Hey everyone, tonight we're kicking things off with a question. How smart do you think you are compared to the ancient minds that built machines that probably shouldn't have existed? Picture yourself living thousands of years ago, waking up in a world where every step could lead you to something both miraculous and terrifying. Before you snuggle into your blanket and drift off, hit that like button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. It's awesome to know who's joining us from all over the world. Imagine this. You open your eyes, and the faint morning sunlight creeps through the cracks of a rough stone wall. No alarm clock blaring, no Bluetooth speaker pumping your morning playlist. Instead, you hear the sound of metal grinding against metal, clang, 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 like someone's hammering a giant skillet. The air? It reeks a mix of sweat, coal smoke, and something like burning oil. You're in Syracuse, a bustling port city in the 3rd century BCE. Welcome to a world where ancient machines aren't just tools. They're monsters that devour human strength and lives. You sit up, your back aching from sleeping on a thin mat that's more like a cruel joke than a bed. Your head's foggy, but your stomach's growling for food. Outside, shouts from a crowd blend with the crash of waves against the shore. You step out of your tiny house, which is really just a stone nook. The streets are dusty, bare feet trample the ground, and soot-covered workers drag massive stone blocks. You wonder, what are they doing? Then you see it, a bizarre machine, like a giant bronze tube, spiraling inside a wooden wheel. It's sucking water from the nearby river, shooting it up into a trough high above with a speed you can't believe. The water flows steadily, glinting in the sunlight, but the screech of metal and the groans of workers send a chill down your spine. This is the Archimedes screw pump, a marvel credited to the great mathematician Archimedes. Sounds impressive, right? A machine that can pull water from a river to irrigate fields, feeding an entire city. But hold on, do you think it runs on magic or something? Nope. Step closer and you'll see the workers, or rather, slaves, hunched over, turning the massive wheel. Each rotation comes with a groan, sweat dripping into puddles on the ground. You feel the heat of the sun scorching your skin, the heavy air clogging your throat with dust. A young worker, probably your age, is straining to push the wheel. His name's Cale, scrawny, with sunken eyes from sleepless nights. You notice a scar crisscrossing his arm, a reminder of the time a chain whipped him for working too slowly. Cale catches your stare. "What are you looking at?" he snaps, his voice hoarse. You step back, heart pounding. "Bet you wouldn't last a day here," he says, then turns back to his work. You want to argue, but then you see the others, dozens of them, men and women, bent under the weight of this machine. One slips, collapsing, and a supervisor's whip cracks through the air, sharp as a blade. You look away, but the sound haunts you. Think about it. This isn't some modern water pump you'd see in a garden, powered by electricity, switched on with a button. No, this machine is a hulking beast, gobbling up human strength like you devour pizza on a Friday night. It was built to solve water shortages, sure, but at what cost? Hundreds of people chained to this task, working from dawn to dusk, no rest, no future. And Archimedes, hailed as a genius. Did he ever think about the Cales of the world when he sketched his designs? Probably not. Or maybe he did. But back then, a slave's life was worth less than the wooden wheel. You pause by the riverbank, where the machine keeps roaring. The water flows steadily, but now you notice something worse. That giant bronze tube doesn't just suck up water. It pulls in mud, rocks, and sometimes things far more horrific. Once they found an arm jammed inside. No one knew who it belonged to, and no one stopped the machine to find out. Your stomach churns, but Cale's still there, pushing the wheel, as if death is just another day at work. Let's compare for a second. Ever stressed about a work deadline, your boss pinging you on Slack at 11 p.m.? Imagine if your deadline was turning this wheel, and slowing down didn't mean a scolding. It meant a whip across your back. You complain less about spotty Wi-Fi or cold coffee, right? But here's the scary part. The Archimedes screw pump isn't the only bizarre machine from back then. It's just the beginning. A gentle one compared to what's waiting for you next. You turn away from the machine trying to walk away, but its screech, whir, echoes in your head. Kale glances at you again, his eyes tired but defiant. "Keep walking," he says. "But don't think things get any easier." You move on, unsure if you want to know what's next. A cold shiver runs down your spine, like you've just crossed into a world humans weren't meant to touch. So, how long do you think you'd last in a world where every machine is a curse in disguise? You're still walking, trying to shake off the screech of that cursed water pump and Kale's tired, accusing stare. The air in Syracuse feels thicker now, like it's pressing down on your chest, and the sun's climbing higher, turning the dusty streets into a furnace. Your sandals, if you can call these scraps of leather sandals, grind against the dirt, kicking up clouds that stick to your sweaty skin. You're thirsty, your throat's dry as an old scroll, but the river water you just saw churning through that bronze tube? Yeah, you'd rather drink sand. The noise of the city doesn't let up. It's a chaotic symphony of hammers, shouts, and the creak of wooden carts overloaded with stone. You're drawn toward a plume of black smoke rising from the edge of the city, where the clang of metal is louder, sharper, like a blade being forged. Your stomach twists, not just from hunger, but from a gut feeling that whatever's waiting for you is worse than the riverside. You pass a group of workers, their faces smudged with soot, eyes downcast. One mutters something about the beast breaking again, and you catch a glimpse of fear in his glance. The beast? Your curiosity drags you forward, even as your legs scream for a break. You reach the source of the smoke, a sprawling forge, half open to the sky, half sheltered by a sagging roof of wooden beams. The heat hits you like a slap, a wall of fire and molten iron that makes your eyes water. The smell is unbearable, charred wood, burning oil, and something metallic, like blood mixed with rust. Inside, sparks fly from a massive anvil, where a blacksmith swings a hammer, each strike sending a jolt through your bones. But it's not the forge that catches your eye. It's the machine, or what you think is a machine, looming in the corner. A tangle of ropes, pulleys, and wooden beams. It looks like a giant spider's web designed to hoist something heavy. A massive stone pillar, taller than 3 men, dangles from it, swaying slightly as a team of workers pulls at the ropes. The pillar groans, the ropes creak, and you can't shake the feeling that one wrong move could send that stone crashing down. This is the lifting machine of Hero, or at least a crude version of the pulley systems later perfected by Hero of Alexandria. You've heard of pulleys, right? Simple machines, taught in high school physics, used to lift heavy stuff. But this isn't some clean diagram in a textbook. This is a beast of wood and hemp, cobbled together to raise pillars for temples or fortifications. It's a marvel, sure, lifting stones that would take 50 men to budge. But every creak of those ropes feels like a warning, and the workers' faces tell you this thing has a body count. You spot Kale again, now covered in soot, his arms straining as he pulls on one of the ropes. He's not alone. There's a whole crew, maybe 20 people, men and women, their muscles bulging under the effort. The ropes are thick, rough, and you can see where they've worn raw patches into Kale's palms. He glances at you, his expression a mix of exhaustion and irritation. "You here to gawk or help?" he snaps, but there's no real venom in it. He's too tired for that. You don't answer because, honestly, you're not sure you could handle even one pull on that rope. Your arms ache just watching. The supervisor, a burly man with a whip coiled at his hip, barks orders. Faster. The priests want this pillar up by sundown. You flinch at his voice, but the workers don't. They're used to it, or maybe they're just too broken to care. The pillar sways higher, the pulleys squealing under the weight. You notice something unsettling. The ropes are fraying. Tiny strands of hemp stick out like splinters, and with every pull, they stretch a little more. You want to shout a warning, but who's going to listen to you? You're just a nobody here, not even a worker, just someone who wandered in from the streets. You take a step back, your sandal catching on a loose stone. The air's so hot it's hard to breathe, and the smoke stings your eyes. You blink, and that's when it happens, a sharp snap, like a bone breaking. One of the ropes gives way, whipping through the air like a snake. The pillar lurches, and the workers scream, scattering as the stone swings wildly. Kale dives to the ground, barely avoiding the rope as it lashes past, slicing a gash into the wooden beam above. The pillar doesn't fall, thank the gods, but it's hanging at a dangerous angle, the remaining ropes straining to hold it. The supervisor roars, "Get back to work," as if a near-death experience is just another Tuesday. You're frozen, heart pounding, so hard it feels like it's going to crack your ribs. Cale scrambles to his feet, wiping blood from a scrape on his arm. He doesn't look at you this time, but you can see the fear in his hunched shoulders. You want to ask if he's okay, but the words stick in your throat. The other workers are already back at the ropes, their faces grim. You realize this isn't the first time this has happened, and it won't be the last. Let's pause for a second. You know that feeling when you're stuck in a job you hate, grinding through overtime while your boss breathes down your neck? Now imagine that job could kill you, not figuratively like this project is killing me, but literally, with a 5-ton stone crushing you to dust. That's the reality of this machine. Hero's pulley system was a game changer, no doubt. It let the ancients build temples and walls that still stand today. But every stone lifted came at a cost. Workers died when ropes snapped, when pulleys jammed, when someone miscalculated the weight. And who paid the price? Not the architects or the priests who commissioned these projects. It was people like Cale, the ones society didn't even bother to name. You edge closer to the machine, morbid curiosity pulling you in. The pulleys are carved from wood, polished by years of use, but you can see cracks where the strain has taken its toll. The ropes, woven from hemp, are stained with sweat and blood. You reach out, brushing your fingers against one, and it's rougher than you expected, like touching a bundle of thorns. You pull back, imagining the blisters it would leave after an hour, let alone a lifetime. Cale notices and snorts. "Careful," he says. "This thing doesn't care who you are." You want to ask him why he does this, why he doesn't run. But then you see the supervisor's whip, the armed guards at the forge's entrance, the hollow look in the other workers' eyes. Running isn't an option. This machine, this so-called marvel, isn't just a tool, it's a trap. It lifts stones, sure, but it also chains people to a life of pain and fear. And the worst part? This was progress. This was the ancient world saying, "Look how far we've come," while stepping over the bodies of those who made it happen. The pillars finally stabilized, hoisted into place with a dull thud that shakes the ground. The workers slump, gasping for breath, but there's no break. Another stone's already being dragged in, and the pulleys start creaking again. You feel a wave of nausea, not just from the heat or the smoke, but from the realization that this is normal here. This machine, this forge, this city, they're all built on suffering. You think back to the water pump by the river, how it seemed brutal, but at least it fed people. This is just vanity, raising temples to gods who don't seem to care about the blood spilled in their name. You turn to leave, your legs heavy, your mind buzzing with the noise of the forge. Cale's voice stops you. "You think this is bad," he says, his tone low, almost a whisper. "Wait till you see what they're building deeper in the city. You don't want to know, but you know you'll find out." The air feels heavier now, like it's carrying the weight of secrets you're not ready to face. You step out of the forge, the cool sea breeze a brief relief, but the smell of smoke and blood clings to you, a reminder of what you've seen. So, tell me, how long could you keep pulling those ropes before you started praying for the pillar to fall, just to end it all? You stumble out of the forge, the sea breeze hitting your face like a fleeting mercy, but it does little to wash away the stench of smoke and blood clinging to your skin. Your ears are still ringing with the creak of ropes and the supervisor shouts, and your legs feel like they've been hammered into the ground. The streets of Syracuse are no less chaotic, merchants haggling, carts rattling, and the distant roar of the river pump you saw earlier. You're not sure where you're going, just that you need to move, to put distance between you and that cursed pulley machine. But the city has other plans. The deeper you go, the narrower the streets become, the air growing damp and heavy, like you're walking into the mouth of something alive. You turn a corner and nearly trip over a pile of broken pottery. The alley is dim, the sunlight barely reaching this far, and the walls are slick with moss. You hear a low, rhythmic thudding, like a giant heartbeat pulsing through the stone. It's coming from below, somewhere beneath your feet. You notice a crude staircase carved into the ground, descending into darkness. A worker, His face gaunt and streaked with dirt, brushes past you, carrying a basket of jagged rocks. He doesn't look at you, but you catch the faint tremble in his hands. Curiosity, or maybe stupidity, pulls you toward the stairs. You take a step down, then another, the air growing colder, wetter, until the city above feels like a memory. You're in a tunnel now, the walls rough and glistening with moisture. Torches flicker along the path, casting shadows that twist like ghosts. The thudding is louder, relentless, and it's joined by a high-pitched screech, like metal scraping bone. Your chest tightens, partly from the damp air, partly from the realization that you're underground, with who knows how much rock above you. The smell hits next, mildew, sweat, and something sharp, like crushed stone mixed with despair. You want to turn back, but the tunnel slopes downward, and your feet keep moving, drawn to the noise like a moth to a flame. The tunnel opens into a cavernous chamber, lit by a scattering of oil lamps that do little to push back the darkness. And there it is, the source of the noise. A massive machine, part wood, part bronze, dominates the space. It's a stone drilling machine, inspired by the hydraulic genius of Ctesibius, a man whose name you'd never heard until now, but whose inventions are starting to feel like curses. The machine is a monstrous contraption, a series of pistons and pipes connected to a rotating drill, its tip biting into a wall of solid rock. Water gushes through the pipes, cooling the drill and washing away debris, but it also turns the floor into a slippery mess. The drill screams as it chews through stone, sending shards flying and filling the air with a fine, choking dust. You cough, your lungs protesting, and that's when you see Kale. He's at the machine, his hands wrapped around a lever, his face grim as he adjusts the flow of water through the pipes. He's soaked, his tunic clinging to his skinny frame, and his arms are trembling from the effort. Around him, a dozen other workers scurry like ants, some hauling away rubble, others feeding wood into a fire that powers the machine's water pump. The noise is unbearable, a mix of the drill's screech, the hiss of steam, and the shouts of workers trying to be heard. You feel the vibrations in your teeth, your bones, like the machine is trying to shake you apart. Kale spots you and narrows his eyes. "You again," he says, his voice barely audible over the din. "What? The forge wasn't enough for you?" He doesn't wait for an answer, turning back to the lever. You notice a fresh cut on his hand, blood mixing with the water dripping from his fingers. You want to ask what this machine is, what it's for, but the answer is obvious. The tunnel, the rock, the drill, they're carving out something massive, maybe a cistern or a secret passage. But at what cost? You look at the workers, their faces hollow, their bodies, so one YouTube script, forgotten machines that shouldn't have existed in ancient times. Eyes shadowed with exhaustion. One woman, her hair matted with dust, slips on the wet floor, dropping her basket of rocks. A supervisor storms over, his face twisted with anger, and raises a stick. You flinch, expecting a blow, but she scrambles to her feet, muttering apologies, and starts gathering the scattered stones. The supervisor doesn't hit her, but the threat hangs in the air, as heavy as the rock above. You step closer to the machine, drawn by its terrible power. The drill is relentless, each rotation sending a spray of water and rock dust into the air. You wipe your face, but the grit sticks to your skin, grinding into every crease. The pipes hiss, steam escaping in sharp bursts, and you realize how dangerous this setup is. One leak, one broken pipe, and this whole chamber could fill with boiling water or collapse under the weight of the earth. You imagine the workers' panic, clawing at the walls as the tunnel floods or crumbles. Your stomach lurches, and you grip the nearest beam for support. It's would slick with condensation. Kale adjusts the lever again, and the drill slows, giving the workers a moment to clear the debris. He wipes his brow, leaving a streak of blood and dirt. "This thing," he says, nodding at the machine, "it's faster than chisel, sure. But it's hungry. Eats men like us for breakfast." His voice is flat, like he's stating a fact, not complaining. You want to say something, anything, but what? That it's not fair? That he deserves better? Words feel useless here, drowned out by the machine's growl as it starts up again. Think about your own life for a second. Ever felt trapped in a job that grinds you down? where every day is the same soul-crushing routine. Maybe you've stayed up late, staring at a screen, wondering why you're killing yourself for a paycheck. Now imagine that job could actually kill you, not with stress or burnout, but with a drill bit through your chest or a collapsing tunnel. That's what Kale and these workers face every day. Ctesibius's machine was a leap forward, a way to carve stone faster than any human could. But progress, as you're learning, has a body count. Tunnels like this one built cities, fortified empires, but they were dug with blood, sweat, and lives no one bothered to count. You watch the workers, their movements mechanical, like they're part of the machine itself. The woman who slipped earlier is back at it, hauling rocks with a limp she didn't have before. You wonder how long she's been down here, how long any of them have. Days? Weeks? The torchlight flickers, and for a moment, you think you see a skull in the pile of rubble, a human one. You blink, and it's gone, just another rock. But the image lingers, a reminder that this machine doesn't just break stone. It breaks people. Kale catches you staring at the pile. Don't look too long, he says, his voice low. You'll see things you can't unsee. He turns back to the machine, but his words hang in the air, heavy as the dust. You want to ask what he means, but the supervisor's watching now, his stick tapping against his leg. You feel exposed, like you're intruding on a world that doesn't want you here. The machine roars louder, the drill biting deeper, and the ground trembles under your feet. You steady yourself, but the fear doesn't leave. What if the tunnel gives way? What if you're trapped down here, just another nameless casualty? You back away, your heart pounding, the air too thick to breathe. The workers don't look up, they can't afford to. Kale's at the lever, his shoulders hunched, like he's carrying the weight of a rock himself. You think about the pump by the river, the pulley in the forge, and now this drill. Each machine is a marvel, a testament to human ingenuity. But each one's a monster, too, feeding on the people who keep it running. You wonder what else is out there. What other machines lurk in the shadows of this city? You turn toward the tunnel's exit, the stairs a faint promise of light and air. Your legs are heavy, your chest tight, but you force yourself to move. The machine's scream follows you, echoing in your skull, and Kale's words loop in your mind. You'll see things you can't unsee. You're not sure you want to keep going, but you know you will. Syracuse isn't done with you yet, and the deeper you go, the darker it gets. So, how long could you stand in this tunnel, choking on dust and fear, before you started wishing the rocks would fall and bury you for good? You claw your way up the slippery stone stairs, each step pulling you closer to the surface, away from the suffocating tunnel and that monstrous drilling machine. Your lungs burn, still choking on rock dust, and your hands are slick with sweat and grime. When you finally break free into the open air, the Syracuse sun blinds you, its heat a stark contrast to the damp chill below. You gasp, gulping down air that tastes faintly of salt and smoke, but it's not enough to shake the weight pressing on your chest. The city hums around you, shouts of merchants, the clatter of carts, the distant screech of the river pump. But it feels different now, like you're seeing it through a cracked lens. Kale's words echo in your head. You'll see things you can't unsee. You're starting to understand what he meant. Your legs carry you forward, though you're not sure where you're headed. The streets are crowded, and you weave through a throng of people, their tunics stained with sweat, their faces etched with the same weary resignation you saw underground. You pass a baker's stall, the smell of fresh bread teasing your empty stomach, but you don't stop. Something draws you toward the heart of the city, where the buildings grow taller, their stone facades carved with intricate patterns. The air shifts, carrying a faint whiff of incense and something metallic, like hot copper. You round corner, and there it is, a massive temple, its columns towering like silent sentinels, its steps worn smooth by countless pilgrims. The crowd here is different, robed priests, wealthy patrons, and wide-eyed worshippers, all murmuring about miracles and divine will. You hesitate at the base of the steps, your sandals scuffing against a stone. The temple's entrance is flanked by bronze statues, their eyes hollow and unnerving, glinting in the midday sun. You feel small, out of place, like you've wandered into a performance you don't understand. Then you hear it, a low, rumbling groan, followed by a hiss like a giant serpent waking up. The massive wooden doors of the temple, easily twice your height, begin to swing open on their own. No one's touching them. The crowd gasps, some falling to their knees, whispering prayers. You freeze, your heart thudding, as the doors creak to a stop, revealing a dimly lit interior where incense smoke curls like ghosts. The worshippers surge forward, but you stay rooted, your eyes locked on the doors. That wasn't magic. That was something else. You slip around the side of the temple, curiosity overriding your unease. Behind the main structure, hidden from the worshipper's view, is a cramped courtyard cluttered with clay pipes, wooden beams, and a tangle of bronze tubes. The air here is stifling, thick with the smell of burning oil and scalded metal. You hear the hiss again, sharper now, and see steam escaping from a sealed bronze vessel connected to the pipes. This is the automatic temple door machine, a creation attributed to Hero of Alexandria, though its origins are murky. It's a hydraulic marvel using fire, water, and steam to open the temple doors, making it seem like the gods themselves are at work. To the crowd out front, it's a miracle. To you, standing in this sweltering courtyard, it's a lie, one that's burning someone's hands to keep it running. You spot Kale, because of course he's here, hunched over the bronze vessel, his face glistening with sweat as he adjusts a valve. His tunic is scorched at the edges, and his hands are wrapped in rags to protect them from the heat. He doesn't see you at first, too focused on the machine, but the strain in his shoulders tells you he's been at this for hours. Around him, a handful of other workers tend to the fire, haul water, or scrub the pipes, their movements frantic but precise. One wrong move, and the whole system could fail, or worse, explode. You feel the heat radiating from the vessel, even from a distance, and your skin prickles at the thought of touching it. The ground is slick with spilled oil, and the air hums with the low vibration of the machine, like it's alive and angry. Kale finally notices you and straightens up, wincing as he flexes his bandaged hands. "What? You're following me now," he says, his voice hoarse from the heat. "Or did you just want a front row seat to this madness?" He gestures at the machine, and you notice a fresh burn on his forearm, red and raw. You open your mouth to respond, but a priest in a flowing robe sweeps into the courtyard, his expression a mix of impatience and disdain. "The doors were too slow today," he snaps at Kale. "Fix it before the evening rites, or you'll answer to the high priest." Kale nods, his jaw tight, and the priest storms off without a second glance. You catch the flicker of resentment in Kale's eyes, but he turns back to the machine, muttering something under his breath. You step closer, careful not to slip on the oily ground. The machine is a maze of engineering, pipes channeling water to a heated vessel, steam building pressure to move counterweights that pull the doors open. It's brilliant, no question, but it's also a deception, a way to make the masses believe the gods are watching. You think about the worshippers out front, their awe, their offerings, their faith. They don't know about Kale or the burns or the endless hours keeping this miracle alive. You wonder how many of them would still pray if they saw this courtyard, smelled the oil, felt the heat blistering their skin. The machine hisses again, and a jet of steam escapes, narrowly missing a worker carrying a bucket of water. He curses, dropping the bucket, and the water mixes with the oil, creating a slick that nearly sends him sprawling. Kale rushes over, steadying him, but the supervisor, a wiry man with a permanent scowl, barks, "No mistakes." The gods don't tolerate failure. You flinch at the absurdity. The gods? This isn't divine will, it's human sweat, human pain, human ingenuity twisted to serve a lie. You look at Kale, expecting him to snap back, but he just nods, his face blank, and returns to the valve. You realize he's learned to keep his anger buried, because out here, defiance gets you nothing but scars. Let's take a step back. You know that feeling when you're scrolling through social media, seeing perfectly curated lives that make you feel like you're failing? Or when you're stuck in a job where you have to smile and nod, pretending everything's fine, even though you're screaming inside. That's what this machine is, an ancient Instagram filter, a stage performance to keep people in line. The priests get power, the worshippers get awe, And the workers, like Kale, get burns and threats. Hero's design was a stroke of genius, no doubt. It showed what humans could do with fire and water. But it also showed how far they'd go to control others, to turn sweat and suffering into a spectacle. You watch Kale adjust the valve, his movements precise despite the exhaustion in his eyes. The machine groans, the pipes rattling as pressure builds. You feel the heat on your face, the oil fumes stinging your nose, and you wonder how he does it, day after day, keeping this lie alive. You notice a crack in one of the pipes, barely visible, but enough to make your stomach drop. If that gives way, the steam could scald everyone in this courtyard. You want to warn Kale, but he's already moving, tightening a clamp like he's done it 1,000 times. He knows the risks better than you do. The worker who dropped the bucket is back at it, his hands shaking as he refills it. You catch his eye, and for a moment, you see the same hollow fear you saw in the tunnel workers, in the forge workers, in Kale. This machine isn't just a tool, it's a leash, keeping everyone here tethered to a cycle of fear and labor. You think about the river pump, the pulley system, the drill underground. Each one was a marvel, but each one demanded blood. This one's no different, except it hides its cruelty behind the illusion of divinity. You back away, the heat and noise overwhelming. Kale glances at you, his expression unreadable. You think this is the worst of it, he says, his voice low, almost lost in the machine's hiss. Keep walking. You'll see. You don't want to know what he means, but you know you'll find out. The temple looms behind you, its grandeur a stark contrast to the grimy courtyard. You step out into the street, the crowd's murmurs fading as you move away, but the smell of oil and the sting of steam cling to you, a reminder of the lie you just witnessed. So, how long could you keep stoking the fire for a machine that burns everyone but the ones pulling the strings? You slip away from the temple, the hiss of steam and Kale's tired warning still clawing at your thoughts. The grandeur of the stone columns fades behind you, but the weight of what you saw, the lie dressed up as a miracle, sticks like oil on your skin. The streets of Syracuse open up, wider now, alive with the chaos of a bustling market. The air is a dizzying mix of roasted meat, overripe fruit, and the sharp tang of sweat-soaked wool. Vendors shout over each other, waving clay pots and bolts of dyed cloth, while children dart through the crowd, their laughter sharp and fleeting. Your stomach rumbles, reminding you that you haven't eaten, but the noise and press of bodies make it hard to think. You're just another face here, carried along by the current of the crowd, your sandals grinding dust into the cracked stone pavement. The market square is a riot of color, red awnings, green baskets, the glint of bronze coins changing hands. But something catches your eye near the center. A small stone platform, draped with linen, stands out amid the chaos. A line of people, their faces eager or desperate, clutch coins and murmur prayers as they approach a peculiar device. It's a bronze box, no taller than your waist, topped with a slot and a spout. A priest in a white robe stands beside it, his voice smooth as he promises blessings in exchange for offerings. Someone drops a coin into the slot, and with a faint clunk, a trickle of water, supposedly holy, flows from the spout into a clay vial. The crowd murmurs in awe, but you feel a prickle of unease. This isn't divine. This is another machine. You edge closer, weaving through the line of worshippers. The air around the platform smells of damp stone and something faintly metallic, like wet copper. The machine is deceptively simple, a polished bronze casing, engraved with symbols of waves and gods. Hides whatever makes it work. You hear a soft gurgle inside, like water shifting, and the occasional creak of metal under pressure. This is the automatic vending machine of Hero, a device that dispenses holy water for a price, using a clever system of weights and water to measure each offering. To the faithful, it's a gift from the gods. To you, it's a scam, and you're starting to wonder who's paying the real cost to keep it running. You spot Kale, because of course he's here, crouched behind the platform, his hands busy with a tangle of pipes and valves hidden beneath the linen drape. His face is smudged with grease, and his tunic is damp, clinging to his bony shoulders. He's muttering to himself, his fingers moving quickly to tighten a leaking joint. A small puddle of water has formed at his feet, soaking the hem of his clothes. He doesn't see you at first, too focused on the machine, but the tension in his jaw tells you he's fighting a losing battle. The priest, still chanting blessings for the crowd, shoots Kale a sharp glance, and you catch the unspoken threat. Fix it or else. You step closer, careful not to draw the priest's attention. The platform is warm under your feet, heated by the sun or maybe something inside the machine. You can feel the faint vibration of water moving through the pipes, a low hum that sets your teeth on edge. Kale notices you and pauses, wiping his hands on his tunic. "You've got a knack for showing up where you're not wanted," he says, his voice low, but laced with that familiar mix of exhaustion and sarcasm. "What? You want to try fixing this thing? Be my guest." He gestures at the pipes, and you see the strain in his hands, red, raw, and speckled with tiny cuts from wrestling with the machine's innards. You don't respond, because honestly, you wouldn't know where to start. The machine looks simple from the outside, but the glimpse of pipes and levers under the drape tells you it's anything but. You imagine a system. A coin drops, trips a weight, opens a valve, and releases a measured amount of water. Clever, sure, but also insidious. The worshippers think they're buying divine favor, but they're just feeding a machine that's probably older than the priest's promises. You glance at the line of people, their coins glinting in the sun, their faces hopeful. How many of them are scraping by, giving their last coin for a sip of water they believe will save them? Your stomach twists, not just from hunger, but from the realization that this machine is a leech, dressed up as a blessing. The priest's voice rises, urging the crowd to offer more, and another coin clinks into the slot. The machine gurgles, but the water comes out in a weak dribble, not the steady stream the crowd expects. A murmur of discontent ripples through the line, and the priest's smile falters. He turns to Kale, his eyes narrowing. "Fix it. Now," he hisses, quiet enough that the worshippers don't hear. Kale nods, his face blank, and ducks back under the drape. You hear a sharp hiss, like steam escaping, and Kale curses under his breath. You lean forward, catching a glimpse of a pipe spraying water in thin, erratic bursts. Kale's hands move faster, but the leak only worsens, soaking his arms and splattering the stone. You feel a pang of sympathy, but also frustration. Why does Kale keep doing this? Why doesn't he walk away? Then you see the priest's hand resting on a short whip tucked into his belt, and the answer hits you like a slap. There's no walking away, not for Kale, not for any of the workers you've seen. This machine, like the others, isn't just a tool. It's a chain, binding people to a system that profits from their pain. You think about the temple doors, the drill underground, the pulleys in the forge. Each one was a marvel, but each one demanded sacrifice. This vending machine is no different, except it's wrapped in piety, preying on faith instead of muscle. Let's pause for a moment. You know that sinking feeling when you're bombarded with ads promising happiness for just one more purchase? Or when you're stuck in a game that keeps nudging you to buy microtransactions for a chance at glory? That's what this machine is, an ancient paywall, a divine loot box. Hero's design was brilliant, no question. It showed how water and weights could automate a transaction. But it also showed how far people would go to exploit belief, turning devotion into profit. The priests get rich, the worshippers get hope, and Kale gets cuts and threats. Sound familiar? Kale finally stops the leak, twisting a valve with a grunt of effort. The machine gurgles back to life, and the next coin produces a proper stream of water. The crowd cheers, the priest's smile returns, and Kale slumps against the platform, his chest heaving. You catch his eye, and for a moment he looks like he might say something. But the priest is watching, and Kale turns away, wiping his hands on the rags tied around his waist. You notice a crack in the bronze casing, hairline but unmistakable. If that gives way, the whole system could burst, spraying water, or worse, shrapnel, into the crowd. You want to warn someone, but who? The priest? The worshippers? They're too caught up in the illusion to care. The line moves forward, coins clinking, water flowing. You watch a woman, her hands trembling, drop her last coin into the slot. She clutches the vial of holy water like it's her only lifeline, whispering a prayer as she shuffles away. You wonder what she's praying for: health, wealth, salvation, and whether she'd still believe if she saw Kale's bleeding hands. The machine doesn't care. It takes and takes, just like the city, just like the world you're starting to understand. You feel a chill, despite the market's heat, as you realize how deep this deception runs. You back away from the platform, the crowd's murmurs blending with the clink of coins and the gurgle of water. Kale's still there, tinkering with the pipes, his face a mask of resignation. "You think this is bad?" he says, not looking at you. His voice barely audible over the market's din. "Wait till you see what they're hiding in the harbor." You don't want to know, but you know you'll find out. The market swirls around you, vibrant and alive, but there's a darkness beneath it, a hum of machines and secrets you're only beginning to uncover. So, how many coins would you drop into a machine like this before you realized it was just stealing your hope? You weave through the market's chaos, the clink of coins and the gurgle of that deceptive vending machine fading behind you. The air still carries the sickly sweet scent of overripe fruit and the sting of sweat, but as you move toward the edge of the city, a new smell creeps in: salt and seaweed, sharp and briny. The streets widen, the crowd thins, and the ground under your sandals turns from dusty stone to packed earth, damp from the sea's breath. Your legs ache, your throat's parched, and the weight of everything you've seen, the pump, the pulleys, the drill, the temple doors, the vending machine, sits heavy in your chest. Kale's words linger like a bad dream. Wait till you see what they're hiding in the harbor. You don't want to go, but your feet keep moving, drawn to the distant crash of waves and a low, ominous rumble you can't quite place. The harbor opens before you, a sprawling expanse of glittering water dotted with ships, their sails flapping in the wind. The sun hangs low, painting the sea gold, but the beauty feels like a lie. The docks are alive with activity, sailors hauling crates, fishermen gutting their catch, and soldiers in bronze armor barking orders. The air is thick with the smell of tar, fish, and something acrid, like burning rope. You feel the wind on your face, cool but restless, carrying the faint tang of iron. Your eyes are drawn to a wooden platform at the far end of the dock, where a crowd of workers and soldiers has gathered. They're clustered around something massive, a hulking structure of wood and metal that looks out of place among the fishing nets and barrels. You hear a sharp twang, like a giant bowstring snapping, followed by a cheer from the crowd. Your stomach drops. Whatever this is, it's not here to help anyone. You push through the crowd, ignoring the elbows and muttered curses. The platform is raised, giving you a clear view of the machine, a ballista, an ancient siege weapon that looks like a crossbow built for a giant. Its wooden frame is reinforced with bronze, and a taut rope, thick as your wrist, is wound tight across its arms. A massive bolt, tipped with a vicious iron point, rests in the firing groove, glinting in the fading light. The machine is a beast designed to hurl projectiles through walls or ships, and the sheer size of it makes your knees weak. You hear the creak of wood as workers adjust the tension, the clank of metal as they load another bolt. The air hums with anticipation, but also fear, like everyone knows this thing could turn on them in a heartbeat. You spot Kale, because somehow he's always where the worst machines are, kneeling beside the ballista, his hands busy with a tangle of ropes and pulleys. His face is streaked with sweat and grime, and his tunic is torn at the shoulder, revealing a fresh bruise. He's tightening a bolt with a crude wrench, his movements quick but careful, like he's handling a sleeping predator. The soldiers around him are impatient, their voices sharp as they demand another test shot. You catch Kale's eye, and he gives you a look that's half exasperation, half warning. "You shouldn't be here," he says, barely loud enough for you to hear over the dock's noise. "This thing doesn't play nice." You don't move, because despite the fear gnawing at your gut, you need to see this. The ballista is a marvel, no question, a machine that can launch a bolt across the harbor, piercing wood or flesh with terrifying precision. But it's also a monster, its power built on the backs of people like Kale, who risk their lives to make it work. You notice the ropes, frayed at the edges, and the wooden frame, splintered from repeated strain. One miscalculation, one snapped rope, and this machine could kill everyone on the platform. You feel the wind again, colder now, carrying the salty sting of the sea and the faint metallic tang of blood. A soldier, his helmet gleaming, steps forward and shouts, "Fire!" Cale scrambles back, and another worker pulls a lever. The ballista lurches, the rope snapping forward with a deafening twang. The bolt rockets across the harbor, a blur of wood and iron, and slams into a wooden target floating in the water. The target shatters, splinters flying, and the crowd roars. You flinch, your ears ringing, your heart pounding like it's trying to escape your chest. The soldiers cheer, but Cale's face is grim as he inspects the machine. You see his hands tremble just for a moment before he steadies them to check the ropes. You step closer, the platform creaking under your weight. The ballista smells of oil and charred wood, and the heat from the friction of the ropes lingers in the air. You notice a scorch mark on the frame, a reminder of a past misfire. Cale catches you looking and snorts. "Last week, one of these went wild," he says, his voice low. "Tore a man's arm clean off. They didn't even stop to clean the blood." Your stomach churns, and you glance at the deck, half expecting to see stains. There's nothing, but the image sticks, vivid and nauseating. The soldiers are already prepping another shot, barking orders at the workers. You see the strain in their faces, the way they move like they're walking on knives. The ballista isn't just a weapon. It's a death sentence for anyone who gets too close. You think about the machines you've seen, the pump that crushed spirits, the pulleys that crushed bones, the drill that crushed hope, the temple doors and vending machine that crushed faith. This one crushes lives, plain and simple, and it does it with a precision that's almost beautiful. Almost. Let's take a second. You know that feeling when you're under pressure at work, racing against a deadline, knowing one mistake could cost you everything? Now imagine that mistake could cost you your life or someone else's. That's what Cale and these workers live with every time they load this machine. The ballista was a game changer in ancient warfare, letting cities like Syracuse defend themselves against invaders. But every shot fired came at a cost. Workers died when ropes snapped, when bolts misfired, when the machine's sheer power turned against them. And who paid the price? Not the generals or the kings who ordered these weapons built. It was people like Cale, the ones whose names never made it into the stories. You watch Cale adjust the tension, his hands steady despite the bruise on his shoulder and the cuts on his fingers. The soldiers are impatient, their voices rising, and you realize they don't see Cale as a person, just a cog in their war machine. You feel a surge of anger, but also helplessness. What can you do? You're just a bystander, a stranger in this world of machines and misery. You notice a crack in the ballista's frame, small but deep, and your heart skips. If that gives way, the whole thing could collapse, taking half the platform with it. You want to say something, but Cale's already moving, tightening another rope like he's done it 1,000 times. The crowd's cheers have faded, replaced by the soldiers' demands for another shot. The workers move faster, their faces pale, their hands shaking. You see a young boy, barely a teenager, hauling a bolt almost as big as he is. He stumbles, and a soldier snaps at him to hurry. You want to step in to help, but the air feels heavy, like it's pressing you back. The ballista creaks, the ropes groan, and you realize this machine isn't just a weapon. It's a trap, holding everyone here in its grip. You think about the harbor, the ships, the war this machine is meant to fight. But all you can see is Cale, the boy, the workers, their lives hanging on a frayed rope. You back away, the wind tugging at your tunic. The seas roar, drowning out the soldier shouts. Cale glances at you, his eyes dark with something you can't name. Fear, anger, resignation. You think this is the end of it, he says, his voice cutting through the noise. Keep going. The real monsters are waiting. You don't want to know what he means, but you know you'll find out. The harbor stretches before you, vast and restless, but there's a darkness in the water, a shadow of machines and secrets you're only beginning to glimpse. So, how long could you stand beside a machine like this, knowing every shot might be the one that kills you? You turn your back on the harbor, the ballista's deafening twang and Cale's grim warning still ringing in your ears. The sea wind tugs at your tunic, carrying the briny sting of salt and the faint, lingering burn of oil. but it can't wash away the unease knotting your gut. The docks fade behind you, their clamor of sailors and soldiers giving way to the quieter, dusty outskirts of Syracuse. The path slopes upward, the ground turning rocky under your worn sandals, each step jarring your aching legs. The air grows drier, laced with the scent of sun-baked earth and something sharper, like sulfur or charred wood. You're not sure where you're headed, but the city's edge feels heavier, like it's hiding something worse than the machines you've already seen. Kale's words, the real monsters are waiting, pull you forward, even as every instinct screams to turn back. The sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. You crest a hill, and there it is, a squat, stone pharaoh looming against the horizon, its walls scarred from years of wind and war. This is no temple or market, it's a military fortress. Its gates guarded by soldiers in gleaming bronze, their spears catching the fading light. You hear a low, guttural roar like a beast waking up, followed by a sharp crackle that makes your skin prickle. The air smells wrong now, thick with that sulfurous bite and something oily, like pitch gone bad. You hesitate, your heart thudding, but a group of workers trudges past you, their faces grim, carrying clay jars sealed with wax. One glances at you, his eyes hollow, and mutters something about the fire. Your curiosity, reckless as always, drags you closer. You slip through the gates, blending with the workers, though the soldiers barely glance your way. The courtyard inside is a hive of activity, but it's not the disciplined chaos of the harbor. This feels frantic, desperate, like everyone's racing against a ticking bomb. Torches line the walls, their flames flickering wildly in the evening breeze, and the ground is stained with dark, sticky patches you don't want to think about. At the center of the courtyard stands a machine that makes your blood run cold. A Greek fire prototype, an early attempt at a flame-throwing weapon. A bronze and wood contraption that looks like a cross between a catapult and a bellows. A long nozzle, blackened at the tip, juts from its frame, connected to a sealed tank filled with who knows what. The machine hisses softly, like it's breathing, and you catch a whiff of something acrid, like burning tar. You spot Kale, of course he's here, crouched beside the machine, his hands wrapped in thick rags as he adjusts a valve on the tank. His face is pale, streaked with soot, and his eyes dart nervously between the machine and a group of soldiers nearby. One soldier, his armor more ornate than the others, paces impatiently, barking orders. "We need it ready by dawn," he snaps, and Kale nods, though you can see the tremor in his hands. He's not just tired, he's terrified. You edge closer, staying in the shadows of a stack of crates, your sandals sticking to the oily ground. The air is heavy, the heat from the torches and the machine making your skin crawl. You feel like you're standing too close to a fire that could swallow you whole. Kale notices you and freezes, his expression a mix of irritation and dread. "You've got a death wish, don't you?" he whispers, his voice barely audible over the machine's hiss and the soldier shouts. "This thing, it's not like the others. One mistake, and we're all ash." He turns back to the valve, his fingers moving with a precision that doesn't match the fear in his eyes. You want to ask what he means, but the machine answers for him. A worker pours a thick, black liquid into the tank, and the smell hits you like a punch, rancid, chemical, like death distilled into oil. Your throat burns, your eyes water, and you cover your mouth, trying not to gag. The soldier in charge raises a hand, and the courtyard falls silent, save for the machine's eerie hiss. "Test it," he commands. Kale hesitates, just for a second, then nods to another worker, who lights a torch and holds it near the nozzle. Kale twists a lever, and the machine roars to life, a guttural bellow that shakes the ground. A jet of flame erupts from the nozzle, a blinding streak of orange and black that arcs across the courtyard and slams into a wooden target. The target explodes into splinters, engulfed in fire that doesn't die down, even as the workers douse it with water. The flames cling, unnatural and relentless, and the air fills with a choking cloud of smoke. The soldiers cheer, but you see the workers flinch, their faces pale, their hands trembling. You're frozen, your heart pounding so hard it hurts. The heat from the flames lingers, even from this distance, and the smell of burning pitch coats your tongue. You glance at Kale, who's still gripping the lever, his knuckles white through the rags. His eyes are wide, fixed on the burning target, and you realize he's not just scared of the machine. He's scared of what it can do. You notice a scorch mark on his arm, fresh and raw, and a memory of his earlier words flashes through your mind. Tore a man's arm clean off. This machine doesn't just tear, it burns, consumes, destroys. And Kale's the one keeping it alive. The soldier in charge strides over, his face alight with triumph. Again, he demands, ignoring the workers' exhausted glances. Kale nods, but you see the flicker of despair in his eyes. He adjusts the valve, his hands shaking now, and you notice a crack in the tank's bronze casing, barely visible but enough to make your stomach lurch. If that gives way, the flammable liquid inside could spill, turning this courtyard into an inferno. You want to shout a warning, but the soldiers are watching, their spears glinting, and the air feels too thick to speak. Kale knows the risk he has to, but he keeps working because stopping isn't an option. Let's step back for a moment. You know that feeling when you're stuck in a high-stakes job, where one wrong move could ruin everything. Maybe you fumbled a presentation or missed a deadline. Your heart racing as you wait for the fallout. Now imagine that mistake could set you on fire, or worse, burn everyone around you. That's what Kale lives with every time he touches this machine. The Greek fire prototype was a terrifying leap in ancient warfare, a weapon that could burn ships and armies with a fire that water couldn't stop. But every test, every shot, was a gamble with lives. Workers died when tanks leaked, when nozzles misfired, when the flames turned back on them. And who paid the price? Not the generals dreaming of conquest. It was people like Kale, the ones whose burns and screams were forgotten by history. You watch Kale prepare for another test, his movements mechanical, like he's shut off the part of himself that feels fear. The workers around him are no better, hollow-eyed, moving like ghosts, as they haul more fuel and clear the charred remains of the target. You see a young woman, her hands blistered, pouring another jar of that black liquid into the tank. She spills a drop, and it sizzles on the ground, leaving a smoking scar. You flinch, but she doesn't, her face blank, like she's seen worse. You wonder how many have died here, how many have been burned or broken by this machine. The soldiers don't care. They're already planning the next war, the next victory. But you see the cost, written in Kale's scars, in the workers' trembling hands, in the air that smells like death. The machine hisses again, the tank shuddering as pressure builds. You notice another crack, this one on the nozzle, and your heart skips. One spark, one leak, and this whole courtyard could vanish in flames. You want to run, but your legs feel rooted, your eyes locked on Kale as he steadies the lever. The soldiers shout for another shot, their voices hungry, and Kale obeys, because what else can he do? The flames roar again, and you shield your face, the heat searing your skin even from this distance. The target burns, the smoke chokes, and the soldiers cheer, but all you can see is Kale, standing too close to a machine that could kill him in a heartbeat. You back away, the courtyard's heat and noise overwhelming. Kale glances at you, his eyes dark with something beyond fear, maybe anger, maybe surrender. You think this is the worst they've got, he says, his voice cutting through the crackle of flames. Keep moving. The city's got more to show you. You don't want to know, but you know you will. The fortress looms around you, its walls closing in, and the smell of sulfur and fire clings to you, a reminder of the monster you just witnessed. So, how long could you tend a machine that burns everything it touches, knowing you might be next? You stumble out of the fortress, the roar of flames and Kale's haunted warning burning in your mind. The evening air hits you, cool and sharp with a tang of salt, but it does nothing to clear the sulfurous sting of the Greek fire from your throat. The path from the Pharaoh winds downward, away from the city's heart, through a stretch of rocky scrubland where the lights of Syracuse fade into a distant glow. Your sandals crunch against gravel, each step heavier than the last, your legs trembling from the day's endless walking. The machines you've seen, the pump, the pulleys, the drill, the temple doors, the vending machine, the ballista, the fire thrower, pile up in your head, each one a marvel, each one a monster. You're exhausted, your stomach hollow, but the city won't let you rest. Kale's words echo like a curse. The city's got more to show you. You don't want to see it, but the path pulls you forward toward a faint, rhythmic creaking in the distance. The terrain levels out and the air grows damp, carrying the earthy smell of mud and green things. You're in the outskirts now, where fields of barley and olive groves stretch under the twilight sky. The creaking grows louder, joined by the splash of water and the low, strained grunts of human effort. You round a bend, and there it is, a massive wooden wheel taller than a house, turning slowly beside a sluggish river. This is the water-lifting wheel, a machine designed to scoop water from the river and dump it into irrigation channels for the fields. Its spokes are thick, weathered, and slick with algae, and clay buckets dangle from its rim, sloshing water as they rise and fall. The wheel groans with each turn, a deep, mournful sound that vibrates in your chest, and the air smells of wet wood. Mildew #1 YouTube script. Forgotten machines that shouldn't have existed in ancient times, Part 8, continued. And sweat. You feel the mist from the river on your face, cool but clammy, like the touch of something alive. You step closer, your sandals sinking into the muddy bank. The wheel is mesmerizing, its steady rhythm almost hypnotic. But there's something wrong. You see people, dozens of them, moving in time with the wheel, their bodies bent, their hands gripping wooden bars attached to a secondary wheel that drives the main one. They're pushing, endlessly pushing, their feet slipping in the mud, their faces twisted with effort. The wheel doesn't stop, and neither do they. You hear their labored breathing, the squelch of mud underfoot, the occasional curse as someone stumbles. The scene feels like a nightmare, a cycle that never ends. And you realize this machine isn't powered by water or fire. It's powered by people, by their pain. You spot Kale, because he's always where the suffering is, among the workers, his thin frame straining as he pushes the bar. His tunic is soaked, clinging to his skin, and his arms are streaked with mud and blood from a fresh scrape. His eyes are fixed on the ground, like he's trying to block out the world. But you can see the exhaustion in his hunched shoulders, the way his hands shake with every step. A supervisor stands nearby, his arms crossed, a whip coiled at his hip. He doesn't shout, doesn't need to. The threat is enough. You feel a surge of anger, but also helplessness. Kale's trapped, just like the others, chained to this wheel as surely as if they were bound with iron. You edge closer, the mist from the wheel settling on your skin, cold and heavy. The buckets clatter as they dip into the river, each one spilling a little, creating a steady drip that mixes with the mud. You notice the wheel's frame is worn, its wood splintered, its supports sagging under the weight. One of the buckets is cracked, leaking more than it carries. And you wonder how long this machine can keep going before it breaks, or before it breaks the people pushing it. You hear a sharp crack and your heart skips, thinking the wheel's given way. But it's just a bucket slamming against the frame. The workers don't even flinch. They're too tired, too broken to care. Kale notices you and pauses, just for a moment, his breath ragged. "What, you here to watch us die slow?" he snaps, his voice hoarse from the damp air. "This thing doesn't stop, and neither do we." He pushes again, his feet slipping, and you see the raw blisters on his hands, the way the mud has caked into his wounds. You want to say something, to help. But what can you do? The supervisor's watching, his eyes narrow, and the wheel keeps turning, relentless. You feel the weight of it, not just the machine, but the system it represents, a world that grinds people down to keep the fields green. The wheel groans louder, and you notice a wobble in its motion, a slight lurch that makes the bucket sway. You step back, your sandal catching in the mud, and your mind flashes to a story you heard once about a wheel like this collapsing, crushing everyone nearby. You imagine the chaos, the screams, the splintered wood, and spilled water. Your chest tightens, and you look at Kale, wondering if he's thinking the same thing. His face is blank, but his eyes are dark, like he's seen that nightmare play out before. You want to ask, but the supervisor barks, "Keep moving," and Kale pushes harder, his breath hitching. Let's take a moment. You know that feeling when you're stuck in a job that feels like a treadmill, running but going nowhere? Maybe you're answering emails at midnight, or repeating the same task until your brain numbs. Now imagine that treadmill could kill you, not with boredom, but with a wooden beam to the skull or a fall into a river. That's what Kale and these workers face every day. The water-lifting wheel was a marvel, a way to irrigate fields and feed cities like Syracuse. But every bucket lifted came at a cost. Workers died when wheels collapsed, when buckets shattered, when exhaustion made them slip. And who paid the price? Not the landowners who profited from the crops. It was people like Cale, the ones whose lives were worth less than the water they raised. You watch the workers, their movements mechanical, like they're part of the wheel itself. A woman beside Cale stumbles, her knees buckling, but she catches herself, her hands bleeding where the bar has rubbed them raw. You see a child, barely old enough to be here, hauling a broken bucket to a pile of debris. His face is blank, his eyes distant, like he's already given up. You wonder how long they've been at this, hours, days, years, and how many have been lost to this machine. The supervisor doesn't care, he's already shouting at someone else, his whip twitching like it's eager to strike. You feel a wave of nausea, not just from the smell of mud and sweat, but from the realization that this is normal here, just another day in a city built on suffering. The wheel lurches again, and you hear a sharp snap. Your heart stops, but it's just a rope fraying, not breaking, not yet. Cale glances at it, his face tightening, but he doesn't stop pushing. You notice a crack in one of the spokes, deep and splintered, and your stomach drops. If that gives way, the whole wheel could collapse, taking everyone with it. You want to shout to warn them, but the supervisor's eyes are on you now, and you feel exposed, like you're trespassing in a world that doesn't want you. Cale knows the risk. He has to. But he keeps going, because stopping means punishment or worse. You back away, the mist from the wheel clinging to your skin, the creak of wood and splash of water echoing in your head. Cale's still there, pushing, his body bent like he's carrying the weight of the world. You think about the machines you've seen, each one a testament to human ingenuity, each one a trap for the people who keep it running. This wheel is no different, except it's slower, crueler, wearing its victims down drop by drop. You wonder what else Syracuse is hiding, what other machines lurk in its shadows. You turn to leave, the river's murmur fading as you climb back toward the city. Cale's voice stops you, faint but sharp. You think this is bad, he says, not looking at you, his breath ragged. Wait till you see what they're building in the hills. You don't want to know, but you know you will. The fields stretch around you, green and alive, but there's a darkness in the soil, a stain of blood and sweat that no amount of water can wash away. So, how long could you push a wheel like this, knowing every turn might be the one that crushes you? You trudge away from the fields, the creak of the water-lifting wheel and Cale's weary voice fading into the twilight. The air is cooler now, tinged with the sharp scent of olive trees and dry grass, but it does little to lift the weight pressing on your chest. Your sandals scrape against the rocky path, each step kicking up dust that clings to your sweat-damp skin. The machines you've seen, the pump, the pulleys, the drill, the temple doors, the vending machine, the ballista, the fire thrower, the water wheel, have left you hollow, each one a testament to human brilliance, each one a cage for the people who keep it running. Cale's words haunt you. Wait till you see what they're building in the hills. You don't want to go, but the path climbs upward, and your feet follow, drawn to a faint, rhythmic clanging that echoes through the dusk. The terrain grows rougher, the ground studded with loose stones that shift under your weight. The hills are barren, dotted with scraggly bushes and the occasional twisted tree, their branches clawing at the sky. The clanging grows louder, joined by the splash of water and the low murmur of voices, tense and hurried. The air carries a strange mix of smells, wet clay, rusted metal, and something faintly chemical, like vinegar gone sour. You crest a ridge, and there it is, a small, fortified outpost carved into the hillside, its stone walls blending with the rock. Torches flicker along the perimeter, casting jagged shadows, and a handful of soldiers stand guard, their eyes scanning the darkening landscape. You feel exposed, like you've stumbled into a secret you weren't meant to see. You slip closer, staying low behind a cluster of boulders. The outpost is small but busy, with workers moving between stacks of clay pipes and wooden crates. At the center stands a peculiar machine, a hydraulic telegraph prototype, an early attempt to send signals across distances using water pressure and coded markers. It's a complex setup, a series of bronze tubes connected to a water tank, with levers and valves controlling the flow. A wooden board with carved symbols, letters, numbers, maybe military codes, sits beside it, and a worker adjusts a marker to align with the board. The machine gurgles, water sloshing inside the tubes, and you hear a faint clunk as a signal is sent, presumably to another station far away. It's ingenious, a way to communicate faster than any messenger, but the tension in the air tells you this machine is as dangerous as it is clever. You spot Kale, because he's always where the stakes are highest, hunched over the machine, his hand steady as he adjusts a valve. His tunic is damp, streaked with rust and sweat, and his face is drawn, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He's not alone. A handful of other workers tend to the pipes, their movements precise but nervous, like they're handling something that could turn on them. A soldier in charge, his armor glinting in the torchlight, paces nearby, his voice sharp as he snaps orders. The signal must be perfect, he barks. One mistake, and the fleet moves blind. Kale nods, but you see the tremor in his fingers, the way his jaw clenches. He's not just tired. He's terrified of what failure means. You crouch lower, your knees aching, the cold stone biting into your palms. The air is heavy with the smell of wet metal and the faint, acrid tang of whatever's in the water tank. You feel the vibration of the machine, a low hum that sets your teeth on edge, and you realize how fragile this setup is. The pipes are old, some patched with clay, and the tank's bronze casing is pitted with corrosion. One leak, one misaligned valve, and the whole system could collapse, or worse, flood the outpost with pressurized water. You imagine the chaos, the workers scrambling, the soldiers' rage. Your chest tightens, and you wipe sweat from your brow, despite the evening chill. Kale notices you and narrows his eyes, his expression a mix of frustration and resignation. "You again," he whispers, his voice barely audible over the gurgle of water. "This isn't a place for gawking. One wrong move, and we're all done." He turns back to the valve, his hands moving with a precision that belies the fear in his eyes. You want to ask what this machine does, but it's obvious. It's a lifeline for the city's defenses, sending coded messages to ships or outposts miles away. But it's also a trap, demanding perfect accuracy from workers who are barely holding together. You notice a fresh cut on Kale's hand, blood mixing with the rust on his fingers, and you wonder how many times he's been hurt keeping this machine alive. The soldier in charge shouts again, demanding another signal. Kale adjusts a lever, and the machine groans, water surging through the pipes with a sharp hiss. The marker on the board shifts, aligning with a new symbol, and a worker at the far end of the outpost signals success with a raised hand. The soldier nods, but his face is still hard, like perfection is the bare minimum. Kale exhales, his shoulders slumping, but there's no relief in his expression, just the knowledge that he'll have to do it again and again until something breaks. You see the strain in the other workers' faces, their hands trembling as they check the pipes, their eyes darting to the soldier like he's a predator. You shift your weight, and a pebble rolls, clattering against the boulder. The soldier's head snaps toward you, and you freeze, your heart pounding. Kale glances over, his eyes widening, but he doesn't say anything, just turns back to the machine like nothing happened. The soldier stares for a moment, then looks away, distracted by another worker's report. You let out a shaky breath, but the fear lingers, sharp and cold. You realize how isolated this outpost is, how secret. If something goes wrong, no one will know, not the city, not the workers' families. You think about the machines you've seen, each one a marvel, each one a chain. This one binds its workers with silence, with the threat of failure in a war they'll never see. Let's pause for a second. You know that feeling when you're under constant scrutiny at work, every move watched, every mistake magnified? Maybe you've sent an email with a typo and felt your stomach drop, or missed a call and dreaded the fallout. Now imagine that mistake could cost lives, not just yours, but an entire fleet's. That's what Kale and these workers carry every time they touch this machine. The hydraulic telegraph was a breakthrough, a way to coordinate armies and navies across vast distances. But every signal sent was a gamble, relying on workers who were overworked, underfed, and scared. Pipes burst, valves jammed, signals misfired, and when they did, The blame fell on people like Kale, not the generals who demanded perfection. You watch Kale adjust another valve, his hand steady despite the cut on his palm. The pipe's grown, water sloshing, and you notice a hairline crack in one of the bronze tubes, glistening with a slow leak. Your stomach lurches. If that crack widens, the pressure could rupture the whole system, spraying water or worse, shattering the pipes into shrapnel. You want to warn Kale, but he's already moving, tightening a clamp like he's done it 1,000 times. He knows the risks better than you, but he keeps going, because stopping means consequences you can't imagine. You see a woman beside him, her hands blistered, checking the marker board with a focus that borders on panic. She mutters something under her breath, a prayer or a curse, and you wonder how long she's been here, how long any of them have. The soldier demands another signal, his voice cutting through the outpost's tense silence. Kale obeys, his face blank, but you see the sweat beading on his forehead, the way his hands shake as he adjusts the lever. The machine gurgles, the marker shifts, and the signal is sent. The worker at the far end raises his hand again, but there's no celebration, just a collective exhale before the next task begins. You notice another crack, this one on the tank, and your heart skips. The machine is falling apart, held together by desperation and Kale's skill, but it can't last forever. You think about the city, the war, the lives depending on these signals. But all you can see is Kale, the woman, the workers, their lives hanging on a leaking pipe. You back away, the outpost torches casting long shadows that dance like specters. Kale glances at you, his eyes dark with something you can't name, fear, anger, maybe both. You think this is the end, he says, his voice low, almost lost in the machine's hum. Keep going. The city's got one last secret. You don't want to know, but you know you will. The hills stretch around you, silent and foreboding, and the smell of rust and water clings to you, a reminder of the machine you just witnessed. So, how long could you keep sending signals, knowing one mistake might drown you in more than just water? You descend from the hills, the gurgle of the hydraulic telegraph, and Kale's cryptic warning sinking into your bones. The night air is sharp, laced with the faint scent of dust and pine, but it can't shake the rust and fear clinging to your skin. Your sandals drag against the rocky path, each step heavier than the last, your body screaming for rest. The machines you've seen, the pump, the pulleys, the drill, the temple doors, the vending machine, the ballista, the fire thrower, the water wheel, the telegraph, have carved a hollow space in your chest, each one a marvel of human ingenuity, each one a monument to human suffering. Kale's final words echo like a drumbeat. The city's got one last secret. You don't want to face it, but Syracuse has a way of pulling you deeper, and the path leads you back to the city's heart, where the shadows are darkest. The streets are quieter now, the market's clamor replaced by the soft clink of lamps being lit and the murmur of late-night travelers. The air grows heavier, carrying the familiar tang of smoke and sea. But there's something else, a metallic bite, like blood and iron. You follow a narrow alley, its walls damp and moss-slick, until you reach a hidden entrance, barely visible in the moonlight. A heavy stone door, unmarked but guarded by 2 soldiers, stands ajar, and you hear a low, rhythmic clanging from below, like the heartbeat of a giant. Your heart pounds, but you slip past the guards, who are too busy arguing to notice, and descend a steep staircase into the earth. The air grows thick, warm, and stale, smelling of oil, sweat, and something acrid, like molten metal. Torches line the walls, their flames casting flickering shadows that twist like specters. The clanging grows louder, joined by the screech of metal on metal and the sharp hiss of steam. You emerge into a vast underground chamber, its ceiling supported by massive stone pillars. This is no ordinary workshop. It's a secret forge, a place where Syracuse's deadliest dreams are forged. At the center stands a machine unlike anything you've seen, the Claw of Archimedes, a colossal war machine designed to defend the city's harbor. It's a nightmare of wood, bronze, and rope, with a giant grappling arm suspended from a rotating frame, capable of snatching ships from the sea and smashing them to splinters. The arm swings slowly as workers test its motion, its iron claws glinting like teeth in the torchlight. You spot Kale, because he's always where the city's cruelty peaks, hunched over a pulley system, his hands raw and trembling as he adjusts a rope thicker than his arm. His tunic is tattered, soaked with sweat and streaked with grease, and his face is pale, his eyes sunken from sleepless nights. Around him, dozens of workers move in a frantic dance, hauling chains, tightening bolts, and feeding a fire that powers a steam-driven counterweight. The noise is deafening, the clang of hammers, the groan of wood, the shouts of supervisors barking orders. The air is so hot it burns your lungs, and the smell of oil and charred metal coats your tongue. You feel the vibration of the machine in your bones, a low rumble that makes your teeth ache. Cale notices you and straightens, wincing as he flexes his hands. "You shouldn't be here," he says, his voice hoarse, almost lost in the forge's din. "This thing, it's the end of us all." He gestures at the claw, and you see the fear in his eyes, not just for the machine, but for what it represents. You step closer, careful not to trip over a coil of rope, and the sheer scale of the claw hits you. It's a beast designed to rip enemy ships apart, but it's also a trap for the workers who build it. You notice the ropes, frayed and strained, and the wooden frame, splintered from the weight of the arm. One wrong move, one broken rope, and this machine could crush everyone in the chamber. A supervisor, his face scarred and hard, shouts, "Test the arm." Cale hesitates, his hands hovering over the pulley, but he obeys, pulling the lever with a grunt. The claw lurches, its arms swinging upward with a groan that shakes the ground. Chains rattle, steam hisses, and the iron claws snap shut, sending a shower of sparks as they scrape against a test block of wood. The block shatters, splinters flying, and the workers cheer, but it's a hollow sound, laced with fear. You flinch, your ears ringing, your heart pounding like it's trying to break free. The heat from the steam and fire is unbearable, and you wipe sweat from your face, only to smear it with grease from the air. Cale's still at the pulley, his hands shaking as he adjusts the tension. You see a fresh burn on his arm, red and blistered, and a memory of his earlier warnings flashes through your mind. One mistake, and we're all done. This machine doesn't just destroy ships, it destroys lives, with a precision that's almost cruel. You notice a crack in the bronze pivot, barely visible but deep, and your stomach drops. If that gives way, the entire arm could collapse, burying everyone in this chamber. You want to shout to warn them, but the supervisor's watching, his whip twitching, and the air feels too heavy to speak. Cale knows the risk, he has to, but he keeps working, because stopping means death or worse. The supervisor demands another test, his voice cutting through the chamber's chaos. Cale obeys, his face blank, but you see the sweat dripping from his brow, the way his hands fumble for a moment before steadying. The claw swings again, faster this time, and the chains groan under the strain. A rope frays, strands snapping, and you hold your breath, expecting disaster. It holds barely, but the workers' faces are pale, their hands trembling as they rush to reinforce it. You see a young boy, barely a teenager, hauling a bucket of oil to the fire, his arms shaking from the weight. He trips, spilling a drop, and the oil sizzles on the stone, sending up a puff of smoke. The supervisor snaps at him, and the boy scrambles to his feet, his eyes wide with panic. Let's take a moment. You know that feeling when you're invisible at work, grinding away on tasks no one notices until you mess up? Maybe you've stayed late, fixing someone else's mistake, knowing you'll get no credit, only blame. Now imagine that mistake could crush you under a ton of iron or burn you alive in a steam explosion. That's what Cale and these workers live with every day. The claw of Archimedes was a legend, a machine that saved Syracuse from invasion by tearing enemy ships apart. But every swing of its arm was a gamble, built on the sweat and blood of workers who were never remembered. Ropes snapped, pivots failed, steam tanks burst, and when they did, the blame fell on people like Cale, not the geniuses who designed it. You watch Cale tighten another rope, his movements mechanical, like he's shut off the part of himself that feels fear. The workers around him are no better, hollow-eyed, moving like shadows as they feed the fire and check the chains. You see a woman, her hands scarred, wrestling with a jammed valve, her face twisted with effort. She mutters something, a curse or a prayer, and you wonder how long she's been down here, how long any of them have. The chamber feels like a tomb, the air thick, with the weight of secrets and suffering. You think about the city above, its temples and markets, its fields and harbors, all built on the backs of people like these, crushed by machines like this. The claw lurches again, and you hear a sharp crack. Your heart stops, but it's just a chain rattling, not breaking. Not yet. Cale glances at the pivot, his face tightening. But he doesn't stop working. You notice another crack, this one in the steam tank, and your blood runs cold. The machine is falling apart, held together by desperation, but it can't last. You think about the city, the war, the ships this claw is meant to destroy. But all you can see is Cale, the woman, the boy, their lives hanging on a frayed rope, a cracked pivot, a leaking tank. You back away, the chamber's heat and noise overwhelming. Cale glances at you, his eyes dark with something beyond fear, maybe despair, maybe defiance. You think this is the end, he says, his voice low, almost swallowed by the machine's roar. Syracuse isn't done with you. There's always something worse. You don't want to believe him, but you know he's right. The city's secrets run deeper than this chamber, darker than this machine. You turn toward the stairs, the torchlight fading behind you. But the smell of oil and the scream of metal cling to you, a reminder of the claw and the lives it's claimed. So, how long could you keep building a machine like this, knowing you're just another piece it'll crush when it's done?